We've all seen those comments and videos online about how easy it is to 3D print an army and how cheap it is and how 3D printers go brr. But do they actually go brr? And is it really that easy to print an army? Let's find out. Uniformation very kindly sent me their GK2 printer kit at the end of last year. I've been playing around with it. It's an awesome bit of kit with loads of features that make it super easy to print out some really detailed 3D prints and get it set up really fast. So this is the printer I'm going to be using for this experiment. It's February here in the UK at the moment, and the temperature's varying all over the place from near freezing to like 12 degrees Celsius. Sorry, my freedom folks. I don't know what that is in freedom degrees, but yeah, needless to say, it's not the ideal conditions for 3D printing. The GK2 gets around this with a built-in heater under the resin vat, so that the resin is always at its optimal temperature for printing. Alongside this, there are a whole host of ace features like the easily replaceable carbon filter and the easy to use touchscreen display and a nice big 22 by 12 centimeter build plate, all of which should hopefully make it easier to print out this army. So speaking of the army, I headed to my mini factory to see what sculpts I could find. One thing that I found when I started researching this video is there are a lot of Games Workshop clones out there, studios which make models which are very similar to Games Workshop sculpts, and I'm not really interested in that, so I tried to stay clear of any of those studios. Another thing that I found is there are a lot of really awesome unique sculpts out there, but not enough to make an army of them. So there's a pro and a con right there. The pro is that the absolute abundance of awesome sculpts are out there that you can get, but the con is that there's only a few studios that really create enough models that look in the same style to make a whole army. In the end, I went with Archvillain Games, whose monthly tribe on my mini factory was the Resurgence set, which are a group of mutated super soldiers whose sculpts are absolutely awesome. Tribes are basically a subscription service to studios on my mini factory where people can sign up to them and get monthly releases. Archvillain have two different tribes, which one is for sci-fi and one is for fantasy, and each of them get a big monthly release with plenty of models which you can make an army with. I paid for the monthly membership for the tribe and got to downloading the files. The monthly tribe membership is about £10, but if you were to buy these files outside of the monthly release without being a tribe member, you'd be looking at about $60, whatever that converts to. So with the files downloaded, I decided to start printing off some troops. I went with the Rotting Legionaries. I figured that these look like more elite and probably would look nicer as an army. So I loaded up Chitubox with the pre-supported files, and with some maneuvering, got 16 models on the plates. 3 lots of 5 troops, and then this one model which looks a bit like a lieutenant or something like that. Chitubox reckoned the first print would be 165mm of resin to print, which I thought was really good for what amounts to all the basic troops we would need for the army. With our file transferred to the printer via a USB stick, I filled the vat up with Warhammer Wargaming resin. This clocks in at about £50 for a bottle, so it's a bit more expensive, but it is really nice resin and it's great for wargaming because it's a little bit more flexible than some other resins. We set the printer up to run, and we're going to come back to it one eternity later. For most of the prints in this video, I set the print to go and left it on overnight and then came back to it the next day. Some of the prints took a long time, so over 24 hours for them to print from start to finish. I have the printer set up away from home in a nicely ventilated area. If you're doing this at home, I really would suggest not just printing it overnight in an enclosed room. Even though it has got a carbon filter, it's probably not a good idea to have all those resin fumes floating around your house. With the print complete, we unlatch and slide out the print plate. We scrape the models off using the metal scraper that comes with the printer, and they have these pickle jars with a drainer built into them, filled with 99% ISO. We give the models a dunk for about 30 seconds. I've got one of them which is a little bit dirtier than the other, so I like to transfer them between them. And then after those, I just dunk them in the ultrasonic cleaner that comes with the GK2 printer kit and give them a blast for about 3 minutes. With that done, I leave them to drain and dry in the sonic cleaning basket over some paper towels. And after a few hours, I come back and put them in the UV curing station and give them a blast in there. Here are the results. The quality from the GK2 and the Wargaming resin is really top notch, and the sculpts from Archvillain they're just awesome. I did have some more fragile pieces snap off. That's okay, we can super glue those back on later. For the second print, I went with the Rotting Cohort, which is a group of 4 elite looking models. One of them stands out most, so I figured I could use him as a HQ option for the army and have the other 3 as just a unit on their own. I included the scenic base for the HQ looking model, and one thing I did notice on the pre-supported files from the previous print is there are a lot of connection points which could be a bit of a pain to clean up later. So I thought for the next lot I would add the supports myself, except for the hollowed out base, which is a bit beyond my skills. I followed the same process, and about 24 hours later I had my elite and HQ. I also included this cool icon bearer in the print as another HQ option. So at this point we've got 3 HQ options. We've got 3 units of troops, we've got a unit of elites, and we're doing pretty well. I did notice, however, that although Chitubox said we should only have used about a quarter of a bottle of resin, we'd actually used a fair bit more. I think this could be a combination of Chitubox calculating the usage incorrectly, as well as losing a fair bit of the resin when we were washing the models post-print. So with this in mind, I decided to go for one of the big rot mower models. Now this model is really big, and I figured that the pre-supported files would be the smart thing to do. So I picked my weapon options, loaded up the files into Box, and sent it to the printer to get underway. At this point, we encountered a bit of an issue. When I got back to the printer the next day, there was a problem with the leg portion of the print. I'm not sure exactly, but it looks like the right weapon arm detached from the print plate at the start of the print, and that could have interfered with the legs. The chest, base and left arm all came out perfect. So yeah, I wasn't too disheartened. The only problem with this is that we have now lost a bunch of resin, and also there's a big chunk of resin stuck to the bottom of the vat. So I did a vat clean, which uses a bit even more resin. Obviously, usually this wouldn't be too much of an issue because it's just a little bit of resin wasted. It's, you know, I suppose this is part of the dangers of 3D printing. You do get mistakes that happen, and it doesn't always come out perfect every time. To finish up the rot mower, I decided to do the sports on the legs and the right weapon arm myself, and these came out fine the second time round. So at this point, I don't have all that much resin left, but let's have a look at what we've managed to print so far. We've got this wicked HQ in heavy armour on his scenic base, along with an icon bearer and a lieutenant. We have 3 5-man identical troop squads. We've got a unit of 3 heavy dudes with these very cool chain glaives. We have this absolute beast, which they call the rot mower. We do have a bit of leftover resin, but I don't think it's really enough to print out anything more meaningful for our army. If we had some more, we could probably look at printing off Project Adam, but that model is massive. Or we could print out maybe another troop option, but we've been pushing it a bit, I think. So now let's talk about the costs. Wargaming resin costs about £50 for the bottle, and the SD files cost me £10 on the tribe, although there could have been a lot more if you were buying specific ones outside of the monthly tribe release. So we spent £60 for these models, not including the printer or electricity to print them, which isn't bad at all. If you were to buy these models as in a plastic kit, for example, you'd probably be looking a lot more than that, even if you were getting them in as like a starter box or something like that. And we did have a failed print as well, so we could have potentially had even more models. However, if you do take into account the equipment needed, the costs really start to mount up. So we need the 99% ISO and the pickle jars, which cost about £15 for each pair of those. And the real elephant in the room is the printer kit itself. This printer is one of the best on the market, but the kit clocks in at nearly £1,000. So yeah, you're gonna have to print a lot to be able to get your money's worth out of this. And I know there are cheaper printers out there, but would using one of those increase the chance of something going wrong? Maybe. Or would it print out as good quality? Maybe not. So it's really up to you whether that investment in a printer is worth it for printing. The initial outlay is a lot, ongoing costs are cheaper than plastic. So overall, yes, you can print an army on a 3D printer. Do 3D printers go brr though? Definitely not. I hope you enjoyed the video, everyone. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. I'll see you next time. Bye.